The following organizations have provided funding for this Into the Outdoors television series.
Have you ever wondered where the wood we use every day comes from? Well, today we're going to explore how healthy markets for wood products keeps our forests strong and sustainable. So get ready to discover something amazing as we head into the outdoors. Wood, like this, is an important part of our daily lives. And when we use it responsibly, it can be good for the forests. Today, we're going to learn how wood product markets help maintain forests, support local communities, and contribute to a healthier planet.
I'm here
Hello.
at the
Hi,
Madison
Avery.
Children's Museum to meet Brenda Baker, who's going to tell me all about how they've used recycled wood to create this amazing play space and why using wood is such an important part of protecting our forests.
So where are we?
Well, we're here at the Wonderground exhibit, one of our new outdoor spaces here at the Children's Museum, and I'd love to tell you a little bit more about it. We built this exhibit to try to encourage children to be more connected to nature and to spend more time outdoors. We really feel like it's important to use wood, both exhibits indoors and outdoors. It's a lot different than climbing on a plastic play structure or a steel structure. It gives kids that real connection to nature. We've been really committed to using local, sustainable materials. So in this exhibit, for example, we're using primarily black locust to build the entire exhibit. So black locust is a really wonderful species for us to use in outdoor play spaces. We're using it here because it's so long-lasting. And it's an invasive species, so that means that when we cut down black locust and use it in exhibits, we're helping a forest naturally regenerate and have more opportunity to have native plants. That's also something that helps in the combat against climate change. Well, I have the most fun job in the universe. I oversee the exhibits and the facilities and the strategic initiatives for the museum. So that we get to dream up what kind of exhibits happen here, and then we get to work on how do we make that come to life for kids. So it's a lot of really thinking through how we can make a really joyful, active play space for children. We work with all kinds of people in our community, with early childhood specialists, designers and artists, and I don't think most people were able to imagine what you could do if you tear down a parking lot in downtown Madison and put in an outdoor play space, but it's really provided an opportunity for people driving by and walking by to see what we actually do for kids and the kind of rich educational experiences that we provide.
Using wood helps us understand the importance of creating markets for sustainable forest products. When there's a demand for these products, it encourages responsible forest management and ensures that forests can continue to thrive. Forests are not only home to diverse wildlife and plants, but they also play a critical role in regulating our climate. Managed responsibly, forests can provide us with wood for everyday products while maintaining their role as vital ecosystems. When done right, forest management protects the environment and keeps forests growing strong into the future.
We are in northern Wisconsin. We're in the heart of the Squamish and Nicolet National Forest. National forests are public lands. They're federal lands managed by the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service. So I'm the assistant director for our Wood Innovations program. And that program really works with industry to support new innovations, to build markets, to strengthen markets for wood products, and to help industry adopt new technologies, to innovate, to be more competitive. Because this connection between the products that come from our forests allows us to do a better job managing our lands. We want to be able to use those materials that are harvested in sustainable products that make our lives better. A lot of what we do is in partnerships. We provide grant funding to be able to support new technology, education for architects, engineers to be able to utilize these new building materials like mass timber that are being used in commercial buildings. We work with new products like biochar, which is a really roasted wood that is really high levels of carbon. It's a beneficial product that's coming to market. Trees and forests are really climate solutions. They're carbon solutions. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from the air. They turn that carbon dioxide into carbon, and they sequester that in the wood itself, really. That carbon is the wood in a tree. And then once a tree is harvested, that carbon is still there. Half of the weight of wood is carbon. So when it goes into a building, for generations. That carbon is being stored. It's really a carbon circle. New trees absorb new carbon dioxide. We've had a long history in the Midwest, in the state of Wisconsin especially, of forestry and forest products. Originally, a lot of materials were harvested and cut. That was a natural resource that we had available to us. Since then, we've continued to regenerate our forests, but over the 100 years since we had the big cutover in the earlier 1900s, we've seen more and more trees, and we have what I would say a very stable forest base in the state of Wisconsin. And there's been generations, Wisconsin is heavily based on private forest ownership, people that have owned businesses, people that have continued to work in the logging industry, a father and then a son and then a third generation that's coming forward, and the private sector that produces products for that.
We've seen how manufacturing wood can make a big difference. But what about the forests themselves? What's the connection between markets and forests?
Using wood helps us understand the importance of creating markets for sustainable forest products. When there's a demand for these products, it encourages responsible forest management and ensures that forests can continue to thrive. To find out how they're cared for, let's head to the Squamigon-Nicolet National Forest, where experts are working to keep forests healthy and productive.
We're in northern Wisconsin. We're going to meet with Peter Connor. Peter's a fifth-generation owner of Nicolet Hardwoods and WD Flooring. They're a company in Leona, Wisconsin. Ironically, that's where I grew up, and my dad worked for that company a couple of decades ago, but we're going to have an opportunity to go and see the kinds of things they do, both as a landowner and the products that they produce from forests. When you see their taglines, it's flooring for generations, not just for today. They've been around for 150 years. Any company that is that fifth generation, they're constantly thinking about innovation. I think that's what is really unique, whether it be the forests or the products that they produce from those forests. They produce an engineered flooring product, they produce a solid wood flooring product, some for homes, some for gymnasiums, some for NCAA basketball tournaments, right? They produce a lot of different options. And those are all natural-based materials, storing carbon, and they have a really good environmental footprint.
The company started in 1898. That's when the mill here was built in Leona, Wisconsin. We've been operating here ever since, so our roots are deep, both with the forest and with the community and the local economy.
Wow. I grew up here too. Actually, my dad worked for your family in the 70s. This connection between forestry and forest products was something that I just loved. I loved being in the woods. I understood all of this connection. I ended up being a forester and now a wood products specialist.
As you can see, things have changed a little bit in the last 30, 40 years. We're really kind of in a constant state of evolution here. We're sort of last of the vertically integrated companies, which means that we take everything from what we have in the forest all the way to finished products. Not only are we producing lumber for other kitchen cabinet manufacturers or furniture manufacturers, but also for other flooring mills. We have a flooring mill ourselves, and we produce both solid and engineered wood flooring. And really, it's the diversity of hardwood species that gives us a great advantage in the marketplace.
That sure sounds like definition of working forests. You've got forest lands, you've got the products that come from them. When you think about working forests, what does that mean to you?
Everything in the hardwood business is really revolved around maximizing the raw material resource that we have while sustainably managing it. So that means that we are managing those forests for all species, and that biodiversity is really what's important. So, for example, basswood. Basswood is the stablest of all hardwoods. It's used in Venetian blinds and musical instruments, the bridges on violins. But we actually use the lower grade basswood to make the substrate that we use in our engineered wood flooring.
We start with a round tree and we cut rectangles out of that, and that's going to create waste. So could you talk a little bit more about how you use some of those residues and byproducts that come from taking a round tree and turning it into rectangles as lumber?
Yeah, well, we really don't look at any of it as waste. We look at it as another product. All of the fine sawdust in the bark gets burned, and we turn that into steam energy that we utilize as heat to dry the lumber. Those little pieces that come off those boards goes through a chipper and then goes onto a paper mill that might be used in an Amazon package, for example. What's amazing about it is it's really a closed loop in the sense that every product gets used at the forest level too. So there's absolutely no waste in the entire product, and really is what makes wood products a net zero product.
And I think that combination of being able to produce products and use a waste is incredibly important. All of that, those products and markets support the costs of land management.
You know, what it really takes is patience, right? It takes us over 100 years to grow a tree. In order to be able to carry that cost of that patience, it requires that we really utilize every bit of the trees that we do harvest to protect the future generations down the road.
When forests are managed carefully, we not only get wood for everyday products, but we also protect habitats, clean air and water, all while reducing the risk of forest fires and disease. This is why having healthy markets for wood products is so important. Experts like Brian Brashaw and Jen Youngblood work every day to find that balance, making sure we can harvest trees for wood products without harming the forest. Their work helps maintain healthy ecosystems and supports the communities that depend on these forests.
Jen Youngblood and I actually came into the Forest Service together about 10 years ago, and I knew her in a different position as a tribal partner for the College of Menominee Nation. Over time, we've worked together, brainstormed ideas, we've built this relationship, and for us to be able to kind of come together today in different positions. She's the forest supervisor of 1.5 million acre national forests here in northern Wisconsin. I lead our National Wood Innovations Market Development team. And to be able to bring that connection between the forests and the markets and the products that can come from those forests is just really exciting and important to me. Jen, you know, we were talking about the materials here that were removed can be used in buildings and can be used in sporting goods and can be used in all sorts of kinds of things, pulp and paper and energy. But what are the other benefits to harvest?
A lot of folks like to come to the forest and hunt in fall. If you see how thin it is here, that helps deer move. So especially for our hunting population in Wisconsin, a lot of this actual area is a songbird study area. So we're trying to see what type of birds come to this area. On the forest, we have martens, which is a traditional animal for the Ojibwe people and very important to their culture. And so we do a lot of work to create those habitats when we do either a timber sale or just managing the land for those different types of species. On the west side of the forest, we have the first elk herd that was brought to Wisconsin. That herd, because of the management that's being done by not only the Forest Service, but the Wisconsin DNR under their elk management plan, has exploded. And we're getting ready in September to host on the forest a traditional ceremonial elk hunt for the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission tribes.
Wow, we got wildlife, got clean air. I think 60% of the water in this country comes from forested regions and this natural filtration. I think we just got all of these other benefits that come from the forest. That whole thing is why I came back to the Forest Service, to bring that connection between the forestry that I started with and the wood products that I focus on now is just really important to me and has been really career fulfilling. And to be able to have that conversation and to meet with Jen has just been a wonderful, exciting day.
Did you know that private landowners play a huge role in keeping our forests healthy? They maintain a lot of the forests that produce the wood products we use every day.
Private landowners play a huge role in maintaining healthy forests. Families who own forests have to think about long-term sustainability, making sure the trees they harvest are regenerated so the forest continues to grow. By creating strong markets for wood products, we help support these families and the work they do to keep forests healthy. Let's visit Warren Sikovsky, a certified master logger, to see how he's caring for his forest while thinking about the future.
Some people think I'm supposed to be retired, but I couldn't stand the thought of it, so I keep real busy. Occasionally I'm the odd guy in the woods on running a machine or something. I recently bought a firewood processor, so I'm busy cutting this winter's supply of firewood, and so this would be a good way to create a new market and also to keep at least one more guy busy. Why are trees important? Well, as any grade school kid can tell you, they make oxygen. More importantly, you have to understand the forests are a very key part of our environment and play very important roles for anything from certain species of fungi to something for people to hunt, for ATVers and snowmobilers. to plan a wide variety of things that the forest provides for us.
Warren's a very unique guy. He's both a landowner and a logger, and along with his family, is protecting the environment and the resources we rely on.
What makes a healthy forest? Well, a lot of things, and it's constantly changing. But I think one of the most important things about having a healthy forest is not being afraid to use it. We always need to be mindful as a forest landowner, as a forester, an entomologist, or whatever, keeping our eyes open to see what's different today. Is there a new bug in town? Is there a new disease coming? What's going on? And that's where it starts, is with eyes on the ground, observing what's happening in the forest. And then real important part of the whole thing is, from a local, a national, and a state level, we have to develop policies that encourage us to continue to use and manage this forest, use it wisely.
In much of the U.S., forest land is privately owned. People like Warren have a big responsibility. They help make sure their forests stay healthy while providing the wood we depend on for all kinds of products.
I'm very conscious about not wasting wood. What all can we do with it? And that's very important for all the users of the forest to understand. It has to generate revenue. You can't afford to own timberland unless you get all your value out of just the pleasure of seeing it. But financially, it's not there. It costs a lot of money to own forest land just to pay property tax. And I think that's what all forest land, all landowners need to strive for, is being a good steward, protecting it, using it, being very cognizant that it's an important living system that does quite well on its own, but from time to time, we can enhance its value, its health. We can't manage forests if we don't harvest products and generate revenue. Over 5,000 different products are made from wood. In fact, I was just reading a research article on it when I was having breakfast today. Being able to make computer chips out of wood byproduct. The food we eat, a lot of it has wood fiber in it. The clothes we wear, they make fabrics out of it. We're in Warren's pinery. On this chunk of my land is an awful lot of pine, red pine and white pine. There is a mix of other things. There's hemlock, there's maple, once in a while a birch tree, some aspen here. In this particular area we're in right now, my family, including myself, have actively logged this area since about the mid-1940s. Just about 20 feet away from us is an old burnt stump that when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I used to come out with my dad and uncle on the weekends, and that's where I caught my first raccoon. That's a historic spot.
From the work of private landowners to the products we use every day, healthy forests depend on careful planning and strong markets. Larger organizations contribute significantly to sustainable forestry practices. The Nature Conservancy is working to ensure that forests stay healthy, resilient, and productive for future generations. By using strategies like conservation easements and sustainable harvesting, they're helping protect forests while supporting local communities.
Yeah, I work for the Nature Conservancy, which is a global nonprofit, and I am the Deputy State Director for the Wisconsin program. The Nature Conservancy has been around for about 65 years in the state, 70 in the country. Our work is to protect the lands and waters on which all life depends. We work directly with private landowners and with public agencies to find private and public dollars to bring to conservation projects that protect large blocks of land like the one we're standing on here. I've worked for the Conservancy for almost 29 years now. A large part of my work has been focused on working with people on ways to protect the large tracts of lands that they have so that it's available for us and future generations to recreate and use. It's available for the habitat that's so important for the plants and animals and the diversity that is in Wisconsin, and important for the products that we produce. And if you walk back maybe 100, 120 years ago, if we were standing here on the shore of Wabakon Lake, we probably would be seeing a leveled forest. If humans weren't on the landscape, forests probably would get along fine by themselves. But when we go back again 100 years, 120 years, and we think about what humans did to our landscape, we really changed the forest. Fires followed in many cases, and we needed to really think about how do we sustainably manage forests. Wisconsin was fortunate back in the turn of the century to start a sustainable forestry program. We were one of the first states in the country to think about using science to create sustainable forests and working forests. What a working forest is essentially is really doing some good scientific planning on the way that we remove trees so that that forest is healthier when you get done harvesting the products off of it than it was before you got there. Across the market or the supply chain, we have really conscientious people in the state managing our forests. From the people that are loggers in the ground to the people that are buying the products, are really interested in making sure that we have a healthy, sound forest. I have been fortunate to be able to protect places like this so that my kids can come over here and fish if they want to, just enjoy peace and quiet and get away from the hectic world. These places will be here for them to be able to enjoy just like we are right now.
Through sustainable practices, the Nature Conservancy is helping forests provide for both people and wildlife. By carefully managing forests, they're ensuring these vital ecosystems can thrive now and in the future.
It's all about balance, caring for our forests so they continue to provide resources for all of us. We've seen how responsible forestry works and how products like wood come from responsibly managed forests. But how do we make sure we're getting the most out of these resources?
Scientists are exploring new ways to use wood that help reduce waste and fight climate change. By studying the life cycle of wood products, they're also helping to make sure that we're using this valuable resource as efficiently as possible. But what is the impact? How can it be used to support new markets for things like timber buildings?
The U.S. Forest Service has offices and land all over the U.S. The Forest Products Lab in Madison, Wisconsin. One is a research center, the only one in the U.S. that does forest products research for our government. If something needs to be brought up to building code or measured or tested or certified, a lot of that happens here in this lab, as well as new research on kind of emerging products, nanocellulose or new packaging or mass timber buildings. A couple other countries have forest products lab, but we're pretty unique in that we've invested in kind of looking at some of these emerging markets and these new products and research and development right here in the lab. The forests of Wisconsin are really pretty complex. We have so many different species. They grow for a really long time. There's a lot of ways in which we can intervene in the system to improve forest products. Most people can't afford to just grow trees for fun. They need to make some sort of money for it. I'm always really interested in what are those kind of interventions and incentives that landowners need in order to keep forests as forests. The trees are taking in this carbon, and that carbon's stored in the wood. And so if it becomes a wood product, we are keeping that carbon out of the atmosphere, right? Which is one of our sort of sustainable climate change goals. And we can plant new trees on that land. If we never harvest that land, the trees are locked up there, and that provides some carbon storage, which we like. But if we can actually remove those and put those into long-term forest products like homes or tall buildings or utility poles, things that are around for a really long time, and we can plant new trees, we can absorb more carbon and keep storing that carbon. But overall, if we can put them into these long-term products, we can lock that carbon away for 100, 200 years as long as that product lasts. I do something called input-output analysis. So when we have a change in the system, say a mill closes in a town, what does that look like? If we're thinking of starting a mass timber plant in Wisconsin, we can look at where would we have our biggest sort of community impact. I do a lot of answering those questions and then looking at incentives for keeping forests as forests and getting higher quality forest products. Folks growing the trees and foresters managing forests, and then got the loggers who are harvesting those. And then all that wood needs to be transported, so a lot of transport, whether it's rail or truck, ships once we start getting into international travel. All sorts of roles within mills. So there's some very small kind of Amish sawmills to the paper mills that are serving the large areas of Wisconsin. And then the people selling it, or the furniture workers or artists who are creating things with that. Of course, the research and things that we're doing here at the lab to promote, forest health and sort of investigate these new products. If you've developed some new bag for chips, so instead of a plastic bag for chips, we can make it out of nanocellulose, out of wood. But is it actually the same quality? If it gets wet, does it dissolve? Can it withstand the heat? Does it keep the chips as fresh? But then the second part, which is a lot of what we look at, is like, does it make sense economically? Like, maybe we can make it, but if we're going to pay $12 for a chip bag, people can't afford to pay that. Getting back to that supply and demand, I mean, at what scale does this make sense as a product? Takeout containers used to be all styrofoam, and now people are saying they don't want that. So in some places, you can't even get plastic straws, right? They've outlawed plastic straws and things like that. We actually look at from cradle to grave with this life cycle analysis. So for something like these mass timber buildings, we look at from when that tree was planted and harvested and the transport of those trees till the building actually ceases to exist anymore. And maybe even then the wood is still recycled. So until every last piece is gone, we measure all of the impacts of that. The climate impacts, the costs, all of it, right? And then we do the same for the alternatives for that building. If that building was made out of glass, if it was made out of steel, whatever it would be made out of. And we do that same analysis so we have a sort of scientific and fair comparison of the alternatives for what we're using. Because we start when the wood is born in the forest until it's at the end of its life cycle, we can give a fair comparison between the alternatives. And then we can answer other questions too. Does it make a difference where the wood comes from? So if you build a mass timber building and you import the wood from Europe, is there a difference between that and if we grow the wood locally? And that's what we do for kind of any new forest product. So whether it's nanocellulose or it's mass timber or it's a pallet, we look at that entire start to finish for a product.
When we understand how markets matter when helping sustain forests, we see how wood products can be used more efficiently and help ensure that forests can keep providing resources into the future.
From producing to manufacturing, we've seen how forests and the wood products they provide are essential to a healthy planet. So keep that in mind the next time you're heading into the outdoors.
The following organizations have provided funding for this Into the Outdoors television series.